Like the rest of you, we're trying to make sense of this crazy thing that we call life. I'm RJ,
I'm Jasmine.
I'm unique.
And I'm Khalil.
and welcome to Try Not to Overthink It. Every day we find ourselves discussing many different topics, ranging from trending news to the state of our society as a whole. You name it, we've probably talked about it. After many heated debates, we decided to expand and share our conversations and give them to you from both a therapist and a social worker's point of view, and hopefully get your input. If this is your first time here, we want to thank you for checking us out, and we hope that you'll stay and become part of the tribe and participate in the conversations. So today, this is a continuation of last week's episode in regards to being a man in today's society. Today, we're going to talk about being a woman in today's society. So I'm going to let either Jasmine or Unique start us off, and we'll take it from there.
All right. Being a woman in today's society. I guess I'll kick it off with this. I watched a video today on Instagram, and the woman was speaking about body count. And this always comes up. I think body count and modesty are the two things that come up the most with women. And so the lady was alluding that women should care about their body count because it's important to men, and not from the standpoint that we always discuss, but more of from the standpoint of when a woman has a high body count, it shows that maybe her self-worth is a bit lower than, and the counter, the woman who does care about her body count, because it shows that she's not willing to engage in certain behaviors with everyone. And I think in our society, woman or femininity has just been reduced down to sexuality, like how sexy you can be, who wants to have sex with you, and that can be challenging for the woman who kind of doesn't know where she fits in the scheme of things. So I'd like to start with that for our kickoff of femininity and womanhood and all things women. Anybody, what are y'all thoughts on that?
I think that the best thing was like what you had shared in our previous episode, that your dad said that you are the prize. Mm-hmm. I know when we were talking about it, via text earlier, I mean, for me, the way I always look at it is you sharing yourself with someone else is the most precious gift that you can give to somebody.
Yeah.
Regardless if that's physically, mentally, emotionally, like my time is precious. I don't waste my time on people. Like if I feel like you're not worth my time, I'll give you the head bob. I'll say what's up and I'll keep it moving. Like in regards to us sitting down and having a conversation, sitting down and breaking bread together, if you're not worth my time, that, my time is sacred to me. And that's how you can really tell if I fool with you or not, if I'm willing to sit down and eat with you. If I'm not willing to eat with you, I don't fool with you. And so I said this in our relationships episode, that everyone doesn't deserve the right to sit at your table. Everyone doesn't deserve to hear your story. Everyone, in the sense of sexuality, not everybody deserves to partake of your wares. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to look at yourself as a piece of property or an expensive car like a Bugatti. Not everybody has a Bugatti. Mm-hmm. Why? Because not everyone can afford one. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at yourself like that, you see yourself, like your father said, as the prize. One of two things happens when you want the prize, right? Like when you look at it from a game standpoint, or from a prize, or from like I guess like a carnival activity type thing, you put forth the effort to get the prize, to obtain the prize. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when you as a lady see yourself as the prize, instead of as something from a standpoint of somebody just wants to have sex with me, or somebody just wants to engage with me, again, the guys that you attract tend to be different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to go with that, RJ. I believe like in modern society, we have became over sexualized due to social media and the drives to get likes and see who viewed our stories and all these other things. And it kind of boosts your self-esteem, or it kind of boosts those women's self-esteem that experience lower self-esteem, or, feel depreciated, because I look at myself as an asset to anywhere I am in the room. Or and we know when you depreciate, that means you've had more mileage or more usage added on to yourself. So you definitely have to do things in moderation. I'm not a big fan of over usage and gaining used things, or things that do not have value. So definitely.
I mean, but I think it's difficult though in the society that we live in, because you have the Young Miamis, and I was looking
Mm-hmm.
at the comments from that the video, and one lady was just like, she's had 2,000 partners, 2,000 sexual partners,
Yikes.
and I mean, she's a rapping phenom. I don't know this young lady, but she's a rapper as well. And so when you have these public figures who are out there and they're portraying that this is how you bag a man, this is how you get money or you get ahead. We hit on it a little bit in the last episode, but where women feel like they have to be the man in the situation. I gotta get mine in order to live. It kind of makes it difficult for the woman who was deciding that I want to, maybe wait for marriage. Even if you're not a virgin, I want to get to know somebody on a deeper level or a more intimate level before I expose my body physically towards them. Or you get dubbed in this soft life category if you decide, I just don't want to be confrontational in every stance. Like, I don't want to have to argue with a man for every single thing. Oh, you a soft life girl. Or could it be that I'm just a woman and I value those relationships different? Because I think in our society, that's something that has just been a real plague on womanhood. And I must say it might have to get edited out. But I mean, we got to talk about the fact that you have men like Saucy Santana saying they know how to tell women to be women. Saucy, for those of you who don't know, Saucy Santana is a man, but he does have some femme identifying ways. I don't know how he identifies, but he does have some femme identifying ways about him. And he has alluded to comments that suggested he was teaching women how to be women for their man. And this is a man who identifies as a man. But he wants to teach women how to be women for their man. And so I find it's hard to say it now. I can't put my body out, right? So if I'm not putting my body out, if I'm not talking about being in his bag and in mine too, if I'm not trying to be the man in the relationship, then where is my place in the world?
But Unique, like you said, nobody want to be that Proverb 31 woman. No one wants to be Ruth. No one wants to be Esther, because that is boring. I want to be Carisha, please. Miss Miami 305. I want a Diddy. But what comes along with those things? We have to talk about that. And letting the younger generation or the vulnerable population gain access to these lyrics. Because me and my friend was talking about, she went to Butler, and we were talking about all the songs we used to sing and how inappropriate they were. Like Hot Boys, it was talking about giving oral sex. And we were like, this was in the 8th grade. We didn't know what this meant. But now, like, why would an 8th grader listen to that type of music? And what if I actually was in the exploratory phase and actually went and tried to do these things, or had openness like the children these days to explore it on social media and record it?
Right.
I remember, go ahead, and Mercedes' other song, You Ain't Gotta Say Too Much From the Look in Your Eyes. Y'all know that song?
Yeah.
I'm sanctified, Jasmine.
So I did, but those songs, like, we got to think about if somebody physically was in a headspace where they're trying to learn how to perform, or this ain't even from an intimate perspective, this from me being fast and hot and going with it. RJ, I see your face.
Well, look, all through, the 20th century, we started to see women become objectified, especially when you come into this 21st century, right? With social media and all those different outlets, it's been kind of like a empowering thing to show your body, an empowering thing to talk about how much money you're getting or how many men you have. They've changed it from how it originally was, right? So the kids nowadays, in their minds, right, back in the day, nobody was talking like that. Like Jasmine said, hey, once it came out in the music, you look back at it, you're like, man, he was talking about oral sex, or he was talking. And since we're older, we're starting to see it. But the kids nowadays, that's how they come up. You know what I mean? That's all in the music. It's all on social media. And like you said, if you are suffering from low self-esteem, you're thinking you have to be like this to gain this control or to get some access to clout. You know what I mean? I have to be like this in order for people to like me, in order for people to respect me. But when you look back at women in the past, that's not how they got their respect. So when we're seeing this, and then people are talking about how divorce rate is high, and we've talked about it on our show, and people aren't really looking for long-term relationships, and they're not into building intimacy. Well, it's a lot of stuff we're being fed on the media. In the African American community, it really hurts me because people actually think a lot of this stuff that goes on in Hollywood is real. This is an act. This is actually for ratings. This is actually to increase monetary gain. All this type of stuff that's going on is not real. That's why actors, they put on a persona, right? They're acting. And the same thing with your rappers, your dancers, your singers, all that. They're acting. They're putting on a persona, meaning it's not real. And so we see them on TV, and we get pulled into that culture. And the only way to change that is to start to expose this. This isn't real life. In real life, you go out there and you want 2,000 partners. You're going to get herpes, HIV, some other type of sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, STIs. You'll what's the other one that even it'll stay? What is it? Genital warts, HPV. Vaccinate people for that. So when you look at the real implications of living life like that, living life reckless, you're actually putting your life in danger, right? So that's what they're promoting for young kids to really fall into, especially young African American kids, to put your life on the line for that lifestyle, to sell drugs. We talked about that, to hustle, to join the gang, to be out there, right? To really do that, you're putting your life on the line.
Yeah.
And people are susceptible, especially at 13, 14, you're susceptible to that. But it's kind of normal to want to sow your wild oats. Like the lady said, you do want to control your body count. It's a little normal for kids that are 15, 16. They're going to they have a sexual appetite. Their hormones are raging. They might engage in some sexual behaviors that are a little deviant early on. But usually people should want to settle down and find a partner by the time you're 21, 22, because it's a lonely life to live like that.
Well, Khalil, I think we hit the nose on the head in that last episode when we were talking about kind of men and how, we are in a generation where women have to be men. So there was a time when it was socially acceptable, and maybe not now, for men to sow their wild oats. It was a thing. And still in a lot of places, it's just accepted that men were to sow their wild oats. So if the man was sowing his wild oats, he had to sow them with someone.
With someone, right?
Exactly. I think women just have now stopped being so quiet about the oats that have been sowed, and it's just become something that people have talked about. But when you are talking about generations and femininity and womanhood, it's affected because now I feel like as a woman, women feel like, well, I can speak on it because if it's good for you, it's good for me. I work the same job you work and I make the same money you make. I have kids by myself because we talked about it on the last episode, guys are leaving. They're not staying home. So if I'm raising these kids by myself, I'm paying my own bills, I'm buying my own house, I'm buying my own bag, then you don't get to police how I show up in other spaces. But that becomes dangerous when you're talking about the family unit, right? When you're talking about the woman being the nurturer, the provider, the caregiver, I talked about it in the last episode, the submissive partner. I'm not thinking of being a submissive partner if we're competing about the money. Right? I'm not being submissive if I can't be honest about my sexual needs and desires. Because just like you had sexual needs, so did I, right? I was 15, so were you. But I was expected to police mine, and now you expect me to be chaste. And so when you're talking about that womanhood, I think it's important to have these healthy conversations. Like my dad set me down a long time ago, like RJ was saying, My dad had to have the conversation with me of, you're the gift, you're the prize. It's important. Your womanhood is not tied into what you can do for a man physically, mentally, emotionally. You are the gift because of your birth. That's literally it. Your genetic makeup makes you the gift. But a lot of women are not being told that. So they think that that's the only thing that they have to offer. And if I make more than you, if I can sleep with more people than you, if I can carry it better than you, then I don't need you. You're an accessory.
Yeah, you hit that on the head too.
I agree with that. I think that what it boils down to is like what I said in the last episode, people getting half the lesson. Mm-hmm. So when you're not given the whole lesson, you do things incorrectly. Mm-hmm. So when you're not given the whole lesson, that just, because, we all heard when we were growing up, I can do bad all by myself. Mm-hmm. Right. That's part of the lesson. The entire lesson is that, especially for young women, yes, you can do bad all by yourself, but it doesn't make you any less than or weaker to allow a man to come in and help you with those things. Mm-hmm. Because a real man is going to come in and help you. He is not going to come in and be a distraction. He's not going to come in and be in the way. He's not going to come in and be dead weight. Now, I can't speak to guys and dudes, but real men, that's not what our objective is. Because again, what the family unit is supposed to be is we're supposed to grow together. We're supposed to bring out the best in each other and make each other better. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't make you any less than, because I watched the episode of, like I talked about Country Wayne. I watched one of the skits today, and one of the characters is on there. She's a lawyer, and this guy, this police detective, he's interested in her. Mm-hmm. She's upset because she didn't get a position at the firm. She wanted to be the owner of the firm. Something happened. She didn't get it. And so he's explaining to her, she's unloading about how she's done this, she's done that, and this is unfair, this is not right. And he's saying, I hear you and all of that, but let me help you with this. Mm-hmm. And she turned it into, you're only thinking about you. You ain't hearing what I'm saying. And so it gets to a point to where, as I said in the last episode, we as men, we've created a generation of women who are more accustomed to the lifestyle than companionship. Yeah. So you're like you said, you're used to, getting the bag, getting the money, doing all these different things without us. Then when we step to you, and we may be a boon or an abundance or a plus to whatever you're doing, because I got my stuff together, you got your stuff together. If we both have our stuff together, just imagine what we can do together. Mm-hmm. You look at it as, I'm a distraction. I'm in the way now.
Mm-hmm. But that's because women have been taught that, and they haven't seen virtuous women and women of submission be in that place.
Well, when you have people like the low vibration plate lady, going out here and she's talking about how, I can't teach you how to be no wife, and I can't, because I ain't married. I can't teach you how to be submissive because I ain't submitting to nobody. But I can teach you how to get this money. But at the end of the day, you lonely though. Right. You have no companionship. Money can't keep you warm at night. Money can't console you when you upset or you in your feelings, or you've had a really bad day. Money don't do none of that. But you know what does? Your companion does. Mm-hmm. So when you have these people who are out here who are giving half these hackadoodle-doo lessons where you're just out here just giving these halfway lessons, guess what? People are just eating it up because they see what she has and they equate what she has into doing what she's doing. Mm-hmm. And so when not understanding that she, that when the cameras are off and she, and she's by herself, she probably ain't living what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, but remember last summer, I think it was a meme when they were like, all the hot girls had boyfriends and husbands, and they talking about this single girl lifestyle. Y'all exactly. Stop listening to these single city girls and hot girls, because all of the hot girls was booed up or married. Right. And so I think Khalil hit that point where when you idolize a lifestyle over, and Roger, you were talking about when you idolize a lifestyle over what it took to get there, you're going to miss it. You're going to do things out of that sequential order. And so many women, they idolize the marriage. They idolize these glorious partnerships. Oh, I was riding for him, but you're not willing to do what it takes to get there, right? We make submission a cuss word. And I hate that for women. We make submission a dirty word. But in order to get some of the things you want in life, you got to be willing to submit to something and someone. You're going to either submit to your boss, you're going to submit to the person you pay your bills to, your children. You're going to submit to something. How much better would it be to submit to the person who's rocking with you to make sure we're going to make this thing work together?
Right.
Right? But a lot of people aren't willing to do that. We've talked about this in another text message. First of all, if y'all don't have a group chat, get y'all a group chat, because group chats be lit.
Right.
I did not appreciate them until this podcast. But so in our discussion, we talked, it was a video on there from a lady. She was saying no longer is she interested in being a strong Black woman. She finds it to be offensive to her. And she said instead of being the strong Black woman, she would rather be interdependent, because nobody helps the strong woman. She doesn't need any support. She doesn't need her network. And I think for so long, especially in the Black community, it's been glorified to be this strong, independent Black woman. I don't need nobody else. And so when people come along, you suffer, and there's a badge of honor that comes. Yeah, she raised all them kids by herself. You know, she got it out the mud. But that badge of honor, like you guys were saying, it does not comfort you at night. It does not grow old with you. It does not, help you to raise those kids when it's tough. Like raising the kids in a 2-parent home is tough. Right. And so when you're raising them alone, it gets difficult. But that's something that in our society, you have half of the people who do glorify that. Now, I will say there are a lot of marriages, healthy Black marriages portrayed on the internet. And they are public figures, but that's not the popular opinion. As Raja would say, that's not, everybody likes a lie. Nobody cares about the truth because it's not glamorous, it's not glorious, but I think it's something to be talked about. Interdependence over independence.
Right. And I mean, I don't understand how people can't do the math, right? When did 2 become less than 1?
Yeah.
And when we sit there, I can't imagine that someone would push on a young lady who has a child to want to do this by herself, or someone would push on someone who's raising a whole bunch of kids and you're congratulating them because they're by themselves. And it's a difficult thing to do anyway, if you're not even, male or female. It's difficult to raise a child by yourself. A 2-person household, if you look at all the studies, right? As a social worker, I had to learn this in school because I didn't know that the studies show that children do better coming from a household with 2 parents in it. I know people don't want to hear this, but even 2-parent households where they're of the same gender, the kids do better. There's studies that show that.
Think about it, though.
It hurts me when people say that, oh, nah, she's doing it on her own. She's doing it this. You got to give it to her, because she's independent. That's crazy.
Because it's normalized and people
know what happens to those kids in single-parent households?
Yeah.
The studies show.
I mean, it is normalized, but we hit it on the last episode where if I have to do it, somebody's got to do it. On this call, we all know a single parent in our family. It's not far removed, like either your mom or grandmom or aunt was a single mom, and it wasn't by choice. This was a lifestyle that was kind of handed to them. And so I think for that woman who finds herself in that situation, developing a strong support system and not being afraid to ask for help.
Right.
It's A-okay to ask that for help. That guy in the neighborhood that you can trust to say, hey, look, I'm doing this all alone. Do you mind showing my kid how to cut the grass?
Right.
There is no award for struggling. At the end of the day, you don't get anything after your kids are grown and you didn't live your life. There's no badge saying, oh, congratulations, you won doing it by yourself.
Right.
But so many women, I think we've seen it in our life, but so many women they've just decided to do it alone. I want to kind of segue this into how to deal with the woman who is accomplished. Because in Black communities, it's oftentimes women are accused of being the man if they are affluent. Not just like monetary, but they are high earners or they have the high position. It's oftentimes for Black men, what I've seen, it's oftentimes challenging for Black men to deal with those women. Why is that?
Right.
Because
Well,
I think that for a lot of us, when it comes down to it, it's the way that men are taught is we're supposed to be the one that's making all the money. We're supposed to be the one that has the highest income in the house. For me, I look at it like this right here. There is nothing more attractive to me than someone who is educated, having a conversation with you, and you, like, I remember, I think it was a lawyer I was watching, and she was just going. This reporter was asking me these questions and trying to trip her up, and that lady was just talking and just explaining stuff and shutting that reporter down. I was like, God dang, she fine. I mean, like that did something to me. That did something to me right there. That did something to me. I mean, even the lawyer and the prosecutor in Atlanta that's prosecuting all those RICO cases. When you hear her talk and you hear her explaining why she's doing everything, I mean, that does something to me. Because again, regardless of how you look, you could be the baddest thing walking, but eventually we got to have a conversation.
right.
And if you can't stimulate me mentally,
I can't miss
other parts of me ain't gonna work neither. And I mean, for me, I feel like women that are accomplished should be celebrated because again, you look at where we come from as people of color. We didn't necessarily get those opportunities.
Right.
And then to see someone that looks like me, regardless if they're a man or a woman, to see them make it someplace, I celebrate that. It's even more difficult when you are a woman of color to make it someplace.
Right.
Because especially because most professions are male dominated professions. And so I grew up seeing what that looked like because I have family members in my immediate family, who have accomplished great things and are women and women of color. And so seeing them do that, it's not abnormal to me because I've seen it. And I think that's a big part of it too, is if you've never seen it before, I mean, it's like seeing a unicorn or a chicken with two heads.
Well,
But I
what
mean,
you-
go ahead,
what- I'm
Khalil.
sorry. Yeah, what you were talking about men being intimidated, I think that's what we're kind of touching on when it comes to women who are making money, who are in positions of power, who are financially literate, who have good education. A lot of the men that would come their way have to be ready for some sort of look. You need to have something about yourself when you come approach this woman. Either you have to have education, or you have to have your own business. You have to be a man of integrity. So those are some of the things that people are intimidated by because you never know. If you go to a woman like this. And you don't have to make all the money in the world. My sister makes a six-figure income, and she struggled with this for a while. Certain men are intimidated when you tell them, "All right, I do this for a living. And yes, I'm in a position of authority at my job, and yes, I have my own house. I have multiple houses. I have multiple properties." And you tell somebody like, that might not have that. Sometimes it can be intimidating for some men, but a man that's really sure of himself and has some confidence and understands that, hey, what I can bring to the table it's not all about monetary. And I hate that people, I think Chasman mentioned this before. Money isn't a blessing all the time. It's not always people. That's where they equate the blessings come from.
So,
If they look at churches sometimes, oh yeah, blessings by dropping up $100 in a plate. That's not the blessing. The blessing is people are an asset, all right, when they're actually people of good moral character, people who have some amount of knowledge on how to be a man, especially a man that comes to a woman. If he's comfortable with being a man and comfortable with her making that certain amount of money, he can bring something to the table. Two is always better than one. So I just know that there's some men that aren't sure of themselves because they know that, hey, if they're coming to a woman like that they have to be prepared to come to the woman like that and bring something to the table. All right. And if you're not bringing anything to the table and you're trying to leech off that person, usually a woman with some good intelligence is going to spot that off the jump anyway. And so that's weird.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I tell people that all the time. Like, for young ladies listening to this, you know, like when we're saying this, you know, like, yeah, we laugh and joke, but you know, we're being dead serious about this. When you have standards, you know, and they need to be realistic standards, not exceedingly unrealistic standards, but they need to be realistic standards.
Right.
And we've talked about this, about some things being negotiable, some things not being negotiable. But when you have standards, a man that is really interested in you for the right reasons will either, one, not waste his time and not waste your time and leave you alone, or two, he will step his game up. If he's not where he's supposed to be, he will step his game up to meet those standards. And you'll see him putting forth the effort to meet those standards. So then you can kind of, you know, figure out, you know, do I need to relax my standards? Because I can see him putting forth the effort. I can see him trying, you know, but again, that you have to lead with that. You have to lead with that. And I think that for a lot of us, we don't lead with those things. And then it becomes a problem later. But when you lead with, these are what my standards are. We're going to go to church together. You're going to meet my people. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to go on dates. We're not just going to be coming over my house, or I'm going to be at your house. We're spending the night together. Like, when you lead with, these are the expectations and these are my standards, that lets guys know right then and there, hey, she's about something. She has, you know, that, you know, she has morals and she has values. She has character. And so if I'm just on some foolishness, I know I'm not going to get very far with her.
Right.
But see, I mean, we talked about that, and I like how our episodes kind of just roll into each other, because we talked about that in the intimacy episode. You gotta have it first. You can't look to get this type of relationship if you don't initiate it, right? And that's either side, men or women. If a man came standardless, then a woman's gonna know, oh, I can do anything I want. I can talk to this man any type of way, you know, because I pull my own, so I can talk to him crazy, right? And the same goes for women. If as a woman, I know, okay, I need and want certain things in order to be safe, healthy, mentally sound, I've gotta give that out, right? I can't have this thing where, what are you coming to the table with? We've talked about that before. What kind of table is it? How many people's at the table? Is it a house table? Is it a picnic table? Because I'm bringing different versions to each space. Right. And so as a woman, I think that that's something that is important to discuss in our personal relationships, romantic relationships, professional relationships. The version of woman that's required is different. The woman you might be on a girl's trip is totally different from the woman you might be or need to be in that relationship. It's a different woman for the kids, or whether it's your kids or the kids that model behind you. Or the woman at church. It's different versions of that one, but you got to start with a standard, right? This is me, right? I am I'm a child of God. I'm educated, and so no matter what environment I am, that's gonna kind of carry throughout. So when people engage with me, it may get a little more fun here or a little more reserved there, but the standard is gonna be the same, and a lot of women don't have that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of younger women don't get to see women of standards, just because if they're living in a single parent household or being raised by grandma tired. Auntie can't step in and say, hey, you know, I know how to be a woman because I wasn't fully raised to be one. So a lot of times I think seeing what, like, I remember I used to watch the Cosby Show. Claire Huxtable, she was a outstanding mother. Like, the women on TV were women of standard and of class. A lot of my teachers were college graduates from A&M. I remember seeing them and I was like, man, those are people who I want to mirror. I didn't see a lot of the celebrities until I think I got probably in the 10th or 11th grade, where, you know, they were more loose. We were mirroring women of the church, women of integrity, our teachers and things like that. We weren't mirroring social media because that wasn't what the expectation was back then. The expectations were different.
I think you hit a very important point on the head in regards to what you're seeing, what you're exposed to. I mean, there are a lot of things that I do because that's what I see my dad do. Down to getting my haircut. We got the same haircut. Why? Because I grew up seeing him getting the same haircut. You know, and I was like, why get this haircut? Because my dad got the same haircut. So, I mean, it's things like that down to the same cars. Like we drive the same cars because again, I see my dad do that. So when you see right being done as a woman, you grow up doing right. But when you see that, you know, getting in somebody's face, being loud, being combative, being belligerent, getting somebody told as a young lady, guess what? You do that too. I think it really hit home for me one day when me and my coworkers were sitting around and one of my coworkers pulled up her phone and she's on Facebook. And the dad is recording his child who couldn't have been no more than 3 or 4. She's going to town on that doll baby. I mean, she's whooping the brakes off that doll baby. And the things that she was saying while she was whooping the doll baby were things that you clearly know that she heard somebody else say when they were beating her. And so because she, you know, at 3 or 4, you don't have an extensive vocabulary.
Right.
You know, you have a set number of words that you know that you can pull on in order to have some semblance of a conversation. But the things that she was saying were things that she saw and she heard when someone else was giving her that type of discipline. And so she was doing what she had seen her mom do to her, to her doll baby. And so to me, that's when I really realized that modeling was a real thing. Yeah. You know, and I talk about that in every episode. We talk about, you know, certain patterns of behavior. You do what you see. You know, you do what is normal for you. So for me, like when, you know, like initially, like when we thought about doing this block of episodes, you know, the low vibration plate lady, the way she was carrying on with her mentee, you know, again, that's what's worked for her. That's what's worked for her. That's what she's seen has worked for other people. So she thinks that that's the appropriate way to have a conversation with somebody. But I was on Instagram and this lady was talking about the statistics about conversations. And so she was talking about how you start a conversation is normally how a conversation is going to end. So if you start a conversation in a combative or confrontational way, the conversation itself is going to be a confrontation at that point. Right. Versus when you're having a conversation, and you know, we talked about the episode of racism. You know, when you are having a conversation of education versus a conversation of confrontation, the conversation goes a completely different way. People are willing to receive what you're telling them. So when they interviewed the low vibration plate lady about what she was saying and how she was carrying on with that lady, you know, there was no, and I talked about this in the last episode, accountability. Part of being an adult, regardless if you're a man or a woman, is accountability. Owning what you said and what you did, good or bad. I did that. Standing 10 toes down on it. Right. You know, so when they confront her about what she has said and how she had said it, oh, I've known her for this amount of years and that's why I felt comfortable talking to her like that and da-da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, she had already had enough food and she eating again. And, but, you know, there was no accountability of, you know, I've known her for X amount of years and that's why I felt comfortable talking to her like that. But I shouldn't have spoken to her in that way in front of other people and on camera. Because at the end of the day, like we all have known each other for an extended period of time. There's a certain way that if you and I need to talk, we're going to have a conversation in private. I'm not trying to put on a show for other people. Right. You know, but you know, like my mom said it, like my mom used to say when we were children, what you do at home is what you do in the street. So that's work for you. So you think that that's the way to interact with other people is hollering and screaming and embarrassing them. But again, a lady with class, you know, because, you know, what she said was, you know, I'm a hood rat sometimes, but I'm a queen all the time. Man, you're not.
But that can't coexist. Exactly. That can't happen. Because
queens aren't hood rats.
A queen, but she's a mentor.
Not a queen.
She's a mentor, right?
But she is one of those people that I call the hack-a-doodle-doo, where you're out here giving half the lessons. You're a snake oil salesman. Right. Because you're out here giving these disjointed, discombobulated, incorrect lessons of how to carry yourself as a woman and a lady. And so at the end of the day, nobody has respect for that.
But without acting like one. You can't tell somebody how to act like a lady while you acting like something contradictory.
Right.
And
I think I remember seeing her on one of the shows and she was saying how she didn't have a mother figure in her life and all these other things.
It shows.
And it shows.
How did she learn? So how did she learn how to be a woman,
exactly.
Right?
You was in
And
the
so,
street. She was hustling, like she said. She was to give some background. She was a hustler. I think she said she was selling stuff. Don't know what she was selling, but y'all can look it up. All this
Doing manly things.
manly things. Yes.
right,
So
right.
it shows. It mirrors in your actions.
So
Yep,
what
it-
she was teaching people is how to hustle. So like that's why I like putting everything in context, right? So if I'm a mentor and I'm mentoring you, I can't stick this label on what I'm doing. I'm a life coach all of a sudden, right? But I'm really mentoring you how to sell drugs, or I'm really mentoring you on how to hustle or how to invest money in real estate. I need to put that proper tag on it because you're not mentoring women on how to be queens at this point. I'm teaching you how to hustle. So then you're no longer a snake oil salesman. You're telling the truth. And you're putting out there what you're actually doing. So at that point, I can't get mad at you because I'm teaching you how to hustle. So after that, I can't expect anything different from you but learning how to hustle, how to get this money. So that's what I'm thinking when I hear her say, hey, well, this is what I do. I'm trying to I want her to be, she's one of my top earners. I have her, that's what she said. I have her in my top earning list of my mentors that I've taught how to get this money. Well, if that's the thing you did do, but you didn't teach her how to be a woman. So don't say it's teaching people how to be queens when you just taught her how to hustle. That's all you did.
Yeah. But
Set the precedence and expectation, right?
Exactly. Right. But how many people are doing just that in everyday society? They're teaching women how to be women. And this is why we have a generation of, go get it and
hustler in heels. Hustlers in heels. Hustlers in heels.
I mean, it goes back to like I said in the last episode. Like some of this it's not on the woman. It's on us as men. Because we weren't doing what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And because we weren't doing what we were supposed to do, women, you had to go out there and get it. So I mean, you think about it like if we were still hunters and gatherers, right? The man's job was to hunt, whereas the female's job was to gather. So if I don't hunt, what are you gonna do? You gonna starve?
No, I'm getting.
Or are you gonna learn to pick up? Are you gonna learn to pick up a spear and go out here and hunt just like I was hunting? You seen me do it, so it can't be that hard if this guy was doing it. So I see him do it. He's not here no more. Now I got to figure out, or I'm gonna starve to death. And so for a lot of where we look at, it starts with us as the men because we got to lead. And so when we're us not leading, us not being present, us not sharing the load, because, the one time I got, and this teacher, man, me and her used to butt heads, and she put me out of class one time in grad school because she was talking about single moms versus, as Khalil was saying, the 2-parent households. And so she was going on this whole tirade about how, that we want to give women that are single moms an excuse because it's just them. And so like I explained to her, and as we were pointing out, raising children by yourself is an exceedingly difficult job. Not everybody that is a single mom is a single mom because they chose to be a single mom.
Right.
Sometimes you ended up being a single mom because your partner just wasn't pulling their fair share. They were becoming a hindrance or an impediment at that point. So you had to cut the dead weight off. And I'm all for that. So, and she just was going on and on and on. So I raised my hand. And so she called on me. And so I'm like, ma'am, I don't necessarily think that that's correct. I don't think that, we give anybody an excuse, but raising a child is difficult. The way I was equate, parenthood is like tag team wrestling and professional wrestling. When you get tired, you run over there to your corner, tag in your partner. And then when they get tired, they run over to the corner and tag you in. And it's back and forth because
sometimes you jump them together.
Exactly. Sometimes there's sometimes there's some team moves that happen. But like when you're raising children, there's going to be things that me as the husband, I'm going to be a subject matter expert on, and I'm gonna carry that. Then there's going to be things that you as the mom are going to be a subject matter expert on, and you gonna carry that. So while you're cooking, I'm helping doing homework. While they're eating dinner, I'm doing something else. And so we just play off of each other. But when you remove, like Khalil said, two is more than one. When you remove the other parent from the household, guess what? Now all of those tasks
responsibilities
fall squarely on you. They're now all on one person. So there are going to be things that young ladies, as they're growing up, they're going to miss as lessons because mom was busy trying to keep a roof over our head, pay bills, cook, clean, make sure we had clean clothes, made sure that we ate every day. So, and then help us do our homework and get us ready for bed. And for, young African-American girls, and she got to do your hair for the next day. That's a struggle to do it all by yourself. So mom is not going to have time to teach you all the lessons of having standards, respecting yourself so other people respect you, because it starts with you. No one's going to respect you more than you respect yourself. And so for a lot of us, what ends up happening is because we miss those lessons, we go into our season of raising children, and we don't teach those lessons because we never got those lessons. Because I can't teach you something I've never learned myself.
But then you start modeling what you hear and what you see on social media and what you hear in the music. Oh, men ain't shit, or men ain't this, men ain't that. But that's not the case. Then you can't raise a healthy household. At that point, you've already got a mental block where I don't need no man, I want no man, I want this, I want that. But I just think young women have to look at it as being that you're not a perceived burden just because their parent was not there.
And it's not an excuse to continue in foolishness. I said it before. You get help. There are countless examples within your communities, and if you don't have them in your communities, you may need to look at exploring or expanding your community. But there are quality, solid examples of people in your community. When you are, whether you're at a church, you join some type of sporting activity, you join some type of organization or work, there are people there who can be solid mentors, who do have, solid examples of what to be. Oftentimes people are more comfortable staying in what's familiar versus elevating themselves to a place where, okay, this no longer works for me. I got to do something different. If we, talking about the low vibration lady as her friend, looking at it from the friend's perspective, if this is, you're saying, I want to be better, for some reason, she had to question, this does not make me feel better. This ain't it. I got to go look somewhere else, because she's not the only person in the world, but so many times we hear, well, I ain't never learned that. So it is this who I am, take it or leave it. And women have that attitude a lot of times. I'm going to just put it out there. We have that attitude as women. We'll take it or leave it. This is how I was raised. This is me. You don't have to stay. But when it starts to affect certain relationships, you got to check that thing out and say, it is me. Just because my mama didn't give it to me don't mean I don't got to get it.
Accountability.
Make adjustments too. Adjustments.
Yes.
Well, they have to want to break that type of cycle, right? You have to want to break it, right?
Some people like being in it. Like you said, some people just like that comfort of just being like, well, I didn't have this.
Right. So in the long term, right, that cycle continues, and then their family members go through the same thing, and they don't expect any better. And this is how everybody has always talked to me. So I accept when people talk to me like that, right? And when it comes to us talking about women and some of the standards, men have to do a better job at raising the bar on the standards. Like when I talk to my daughter, I say, hey, you want someone who's going to school. You want someone who's being productive. You want someone who wants to lift you up, bring you out from where you're at, right? And in turn, you do the same thing. So when we have men who are supposed to be the head of the household and their children see them only working part-time or being in and out of jail or not, having multiple women, multiple families. I have a good friend. I remember she told me, she said, man, I had half brothers and sisters that grew up one town over. Matter of fact, nobody really ever brought us together. So we knew each other because we were close in age. And when she looked back on that, she was like, man, I could have ended up getting with my brother, my biological brother. Because we had the same father. You get what I'm saying? That's on the men. That's on the men, not to teach our women, to teach our children how to be better fathers, how to be better young men. And in turn, also reaching out to the women as well, because men do have something to give to women.
Absolutely. It's a partnership.
Educate your children. It's a partnership. Like RJ said, you might be an expert in one thing, I might be an expert in something else, but men can teach their daughters things. And I try my best to do that because I have some knowledge about certain things that men try to do, certain game men try to run. So I'm always pulling my girl child up on game now.
You're giving away secrets.
Right.
No,
right.
I mean, it's important it's not about there are things you can teach your daughter. There are things that your daughter absolutely needs you to teach her.
Right.
About being, how to show up in that space where she doesn't feel like she has to compete to be the man. You are the woman, and that spot is necessary. This is what having that partnership looks like. This is when you're in that space with the man, this is what some of the things that men need, or this is how the partnership works with two different genders, or being a partner. This is what being a partner looks like.
Right.
It has to happen right there. When I'm working with my kid, there are certain things where she knows when it comes to cooking, I'm coming to my mommy. Okay. My husband knows how to cook, but she's not going to him. When it comes to lifting something, putting something up, putting something together, she tried to play me, but she'd be like, I'm going to my dad. I'm like, I know I could fix things. Okay. I could pick up a hammer. She's like, no. I'm going to go to my daddy for that. That's okay. But she's already at 8, has already seen, I need both of these people in my life to have a well-rounded being. And that's something that we hope to always provide for her as she grows. Having these people in your life, you're going to need your dad for learning how to be a woman, because you need to learn, okay, I need to be able to depend on somebody. I can't do life alone. I had a teacher who always said, I can't do life in a vacuum. You can't. In order to survive, you got to do it with other people. But knowing how to do that comes from this at a young age, teaching them how to be a woman and not feel like your womanhood is challenged because you ask for help.
Right.
Well, I like you said, it starts with, I do think that I agree with both of y'all that it starts with your dad. I remember I dated a young lady when I was in graduate school, and she was in school, both me and Unique, and her dad was in her life. And it affected her in multiple ways, in ways in regards to having relationships with other men. It affected her in that way, to where it just like, and I had to tell her, like, I remember one time I think you need to go to counseling. Like, it just affected her in that way, because it impacted her ability to be able to have lasting, normal, functional, healthy relationships with men, right, because her dad wasn't there. And so, when you don't have both parents to kind of learn from, again, as I said initially at the start of the episode, you're only getting a portion of the lesson, because there's an A side and there's a B side. The A side is going to be the lesson that you get from your dad. The B side is going to be the lesson that you get from your mom. Because for me, there are certain things that, I thought one way, just talking to my dad, but I sat down and talked to my mom. My mom was like, no, that's not how that happened. This is da-da-da-da-da-da. And she hit me on stuff that I wasn't aware of.
Right.
So had I not been old enough and mature enough to be able to receive those lessons and had the blessing of having both parents at home, I would not have been able to get that lesson. And I think that that's where, regardless if you and the mother of your child, your wife, your girlfriend, regardless if you guys work out or not, as men, you have a responsibility to continue to be in your children's lives. You have a responsibility because, again, even when, for me, I remember I dated this one girl where she was okay with being a baby mama. Like, she would be pressed because her sister had a kid and, this friend had a kid. Why we ain't got no kid? Because we're not married. Well,
Ow.
Well, they're not married. That's probably what she said.
And that was her defense. Well, they're not married. And I'm like, well, they're doing it wrong. And so it started a fight, and eventually, like, we had to kind of part ways, because it was just like, I got tired of having that same conversation where that's a non-negotiable for me. I'm not having kids and we're not married, because, again, I want to be able to come home to my kids every day. I want to be able to read books to my kids every day, because those are things that I experienced as a child. My uncle did that for me. He'd be at work all day, come home and play with me and my sister. Because at the time, he didn't have any kids. But even once he had a child, he still continued to do those things. My dad did those things. So for me, That's what I grew up. That's what I want to give to my kids. And so just laying, we can lay up and have a kid, but again, we can barely be in a functional space together for an extended period of time. Just imagine what happens when we have kids. Because I'm not trying to be going at your neck, you going at my neck, and we got a kid now. Oh my God, that's gonna make it like a million times worse.
But people aren't willing to have those type of conversations, those mature conversations like we're talking about today. It's more than just what I have in my pants, how much money I'm bringing to the table. We're talking about shaping lives and generations. It starts with conversations like this. Like, I'm not willing to ruin my generation because of some foolishness. Right. But it goes back to those standards. Like, I have a standard of what I'm expecting and what I want, not just for me, for my lineage. I want to be a man or woman of quality. When my kids look back, when my grandkids look back, they say, "Well, my grandma did it this way. That's why I do it this way. My grandmama did it this way. My mama did it this way. Now I do it this way." But if they don't have a standard to live by, you're going to just have generations of nonsense happening. And so I think these conversations are extremely important, not just on, in text messages and dinner tables, but on public platforms like this one, where we can put it out there for people to see. There are people who are interested in having solid relationships and being quality individuals of high vibration. And it's not just about the superficial things. Like
so petty. I so petty.
I think we all have to remember that standards, when we have standards and people live by certain moral values and standards, it cuts down on the chaos.
It does.
I'm not going to get biblical, but the reason why you didn't entertain certain cultures in the Bible, the reason why God had asked them not to take in certain cultures, because they had standards. Other cultures had different standards. They would sacrifice kids to gods that didn't exist. They'd worship false idols. They do other, they'd eat food with blood in it. They do a whole bunch of other things that would cause the Israelites to lower their standards, right? And when the Israelites did lower their standards and they brought all these things into their tent, a whole bunch of different problems came about.
Punishments.
Yeah. And so we know that as people who want to cut down on chaos, if that's what you really, especially if you want to live the low drama life, right? And function at a higher vibration, you got to cut down on certain foolishness, and having standards does cut that out. Because when I used to get drunk every night, right? And I was a drinker in my 20s, in and out of the bar, and my inhibitions were lowered and I had lower standards. I brought in a lot of foolishness. And I'm paying for some of it now, and that's why we really have to push on today's women that you do have to have some standards about who you let inside yourself.
Yeah, I think even not just like your partners, but I was thinking too, just like your circle of influence.
Exactly.
Who's influencing you? Who has you going places, doing things, wearing certain things? I have a group of women who I am so grateful for, but they won't let me step out of the house wearing any old thing. Girl, where you going? You're not going to embarrass me like that. Right? I've had a homegirl to check me on working out. I told her, following her on the fitness thing on my Apple Watch was the worst decision ever, because that accountability is too real. I said, first of all, stay out of my business. She said, stand up. You're staring in my clothes yet. Get up. We have goals and values. I said, okay. All right, getting up out of the bed. But that's the type of accountability as a woman I need. A person who's going to check me in my marriage and say, "Sis, what you mean you throwing it away?" No, we're not doing that. So stop talking back. Stop, go say sorry, because you were wrong. But those are the friendships that I am grateful for as a woman. As a growing up as a girl, I needed my parents, but as a woman, I need people who are going to remind me of my value system, remind me that you are the prize. But as the prize, there are certain expectations that we are expecting of you, because you don't just represent yourself. You represent a community of high-class women. And if you're going to associate with me, there's a certain level that you have to aspire to and maintain. And I don't think that that's something that we always talk about. I had a mentee when I was working for an HBCU, and she's a city girl. I love her to death, and she knows that if she hears this, she knows that I'm telling nothing but the truth. No apple. So Siri was trying to join the conversation. But so my mentee, she was applying for a scholarship, and in the application letter, she had things like misspelled, the caps on the document were just inappropriate, and I made her redo it, and she got upset. She's like, "Are you really gonna make me rewrite this whole application?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, why?" I said, "Because you come in my office every day talking about calling me mom, your mentor, you want to aspire to be like me in mental health." I said, "But you want to turn in stuff like this, and you're attached to me." I said, "If you're going to be attached to me, then you got to carry yourself accordingly." This young lady graduated from the school with minimal debt. I think she just had debt her first year. She's paid off all her debt and got into graduate school for free on a scholarship. But that came because I said, you got to have a standard from day one. I didn't allow her to slip up. I didn't say, well, blame it on, well, she didn't see anybody graduate from college. She's an inner city youth. You know, she grew up in a single parent family. No. You want to aspire to greatness, it starts today. And so I held her accountable. And even to this day, our relationship is the same. And I'm proud of this young lady because I said, you took what I said to heart. She said, yeah, because I knew to get where you are, it was going to require work. And that is something that not only I preach, but I do practice in my female relationships. I am intentional about surrounding myself with women who are either where I want to be or who model the lifestyle that I want to model and continue in all of my other relationships.
Wow. I hope somebody heard that today. I hope somebody's listening to that. And I hope some other women take charge and be mentors to the youth. Go out there and allow them to see it so they can mimic it. Show them what the standards are. And I think that's what we really need to focus on when it comes to today's youth and all the influences that are negative that they're seeing. Give them some positivity.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I don't think it even just applies to today's youth. I think that it applies to adults as well. Because again, you know, you're just out here, you don't know any better, you know, and until you, and I tell my clients this all the time, you know, if you're trying to have things that you've never had, you got to be willing to do things you've never done. And for a lot of us, like Unique was saying, we have to have that accountability partner that kind of holds us accountable. And it doesn't have to be somebody of the same gender as you. Like I have a homegirl where, you know, we've known each other for going on 10 plus years, and she likes to, you know, be dressed a certain way. And I had to tell her one time, you know, she was asking, she was like, you know, I look around, I see everybody else got, you know, a family and X, Y, and Z, and I don't have those things. And I said, hey, you know, are you doing things to have those things? And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, when we go out, you know, you dress like we going someplace other than where we going. I said, so you get certain type of attention, but that's not attention that you want from those type of guys. So if you're wanting to get a different type of attention, because like I had to explain to her, you know, if a guy is interested in you, we'll get to that point eventually. At some point in time, we'll get to that point, but you don't lead with that and then expect him to see past, you know, something more past that.
Right.
And so I remember, you know, I have to ask people now, am I on speakerphone? Because I didn't realize she was talking to me on speakerphone. And her mom was apparently sitting at the table when she's talking to me on speakerphone. So her mom was like, I've been telling her she needs to put clothes on when she go out. And I'm just like, oh my God. I couldn't, but I mean, the thing about it though was she needed to hear that. And so, and hear that not just from other women, because again, when you look around your circle, like Chasmine and Unique were saying, your circle tends to impart upon you what you're going to do. You tend to do what everybody else around you is doing. So when you look around her circle doing the same stuff. So when I said that to her and then her mom seconded what I said, she started dressing a little bit better. You know, it wasn't, you know, you out here and you dressing like we going over here and we actually going over there, you know, so she started to kind of dress better because again, you know, I said that to her and she needed to hear that from a man because it comes differently when you hear it from a man versus you hear it from a woman or you hear it from your mama. You know, when you hear it from your peer, or somebody of the opposite sex telling you, yeah, you tripping, that's not a good look, you respond to it differently. And I mean, like for me, you know, if I call you my friend, because I don't surround myself with everybody. If I call you my friend, I never want you to look crazy. I'm not going to let you, you know, self-destruct or be looking any kind of way. I'm going to have that conversation with you because I want to save you from yourself. I hate to see people fail. And so, like, in knowing her and knowing her heart, like I had to explain to her, because not only, you know, with the dressing, but also with the attitude. A lot of people don't really get a chance to understand. I tell her, a lot of people don't get a chance to understand you and know you for you, because of the attitude you lead with. Now, I understand that you mean well because I know you, but everyone else is not going to look past you talking loud and you talking back to dig deeper into what you're actually trying to communicate. And so again, as I had to explain to her, the lessons that I've had to learn, you know, firsthand, every action doesn't require a response. You don't always have to respond to everything. You don't always have to get somebody told you. You don't always have to have the last word. Sometimes it's okay to just shut up and just do what they tell you to do. Because when it's wrong, you did exactly what they told you to do. So now guess what is wrong because you told me wrong. Versus I thought I knew more than you and I did what I wanted to do. And now because they're in charge of you, now you're wrong because you disobeyed what I told you. And so having those conversations as peers, when we see each other failing, you know, pulling people up and having those conversations with them is very important. You know, being able to help people get past themselves is very important because hell, most of the time, like all three of y'all on this call, there have been times where I'm getting ready to do something extremely foolish and impulsive, but listening to y'all, you know, saved me from doing something really stupid that I probably wouldn't have been able to come back from. So, you know, accountability, we all have that. And I talked about that in last episode, where one of the main things that we are not teaching is accountability, owning your stuff and holding yourself, you know, to a standard, saying that, okay, this wasn't okay because ... instead of pointing the finger at somebody else. And I think that once we, as both men and women, because I can't just put it all on men, I can't just put it all on women, we all make choices. Once we start owning our stuff and taking accountability and taking ownership for the choices that we make and the decisions that we've made, you'll see us kind of get past where we're at right now. But as long as we continue to look for excuses and want to point the finger and the blame somewhere else, we're going to continue to be stagnant, and we'll continue to see the generation after us and the generation after us and the generation after that constantly just rinse and repeat the same cycle.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's all they're going to have. You know, we've created a world where that's okay. We've conditioned ourselves to believe that this is the optimal way of doing things, and it's not. It's actually harmful to us in the long run.
We got to create blueprints of excellence and lack of mediocrity.
I definitely agree.
But that comes with hard conversations, Jasmine. I mean, you got to be willing to go the distance, dig a little deeper, have some accountability, have some introspection, and realize your voice does not always have to be the loudest one in the room, right? Even as women, I think in this modern era of the strong woman, that's oftentimes what we feel like we have to have the loudest voice in the room. But it's okay for someone else to have a voice. It's okay for someone else to have an opinion that differs from mine, and we still come together and we can find an agreeable point. So much of this has to be bigger than just the individual. If we only are seeing it as just a me thing, nobody is going to grow. The culture will die. That's why a lot of us are in the mess that we're in, because everybody wanted to mind their business and do their own thing. And so now we're in this piss poor condition talking about manhood and womanhood because everybody wanted to just do their own thing. It's going to come a time when we have to be willing to have these conversations and say, it's not just about me. Because I don't just represent me, I represent us.
The tribe.
The tribe. For the tribe to get it, for us to get it, we got to be willing to make some sacrifices and do things a little differently if we're expecting different results.
Right.
Exactly.
So.
All right. We've come to the end of time, folks. We got to that hour pretty quick. when the topic is thick and heavy like this. I love it. I love it.
Yes. So we're going to end the conversation here. This is Try Not to Overthink It. Signing out. I'm RJ.
I'm Chasmin.
I'm Unique.
And I'm Khalil.
And we will catch you in the next episode. But if you like what you heard, we can be seen and watched on YouTube at Try Not to Overthink It. If you want to listen to the conversation, we can be heard on Anchor, Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. And if you happen to stop by the YouTube page, we'd ask that you like, subscribe, turn your notifications on, because we do drop content every week. And so we will catch you in the next episode. Later.
Bye.